Welcome into Texans Pep Talk. Guys, were you aware that Joe Mixon was a magician?
I had no idea. I know he's from LA. Well, not LA. I know he's from
the Bay Area.
He's from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
You got to get that right. But I didn't know he was a magician. Tell me more.
On Monday, he had a hat trick. 3 touchdowns against the Dallas Cowboys. There was one of them high-stepping into the end zone. Welcome into Texans Pep Talk. I am Chancellor Johnson. That is DJ Bianime and Pep Hamilton. And guys, the Texans are now 7-4 on the season after a really impressive win against the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night.
It was about time they finally had one of those decisive victories. Yep. And yeah, there was a moment where it looked kind of tricky, but again, they were able to pull away. Thanks to Joe Mixon having 3 rushing touchdowns and Derek Barnett being able to get what they call a thick 6, you know what I'm saying, with a scoop and score.
Is that what y'all call it, Pep, a thick 6?
No, not at all.
Y'all call it thick 6? Hey,
that's not in my vocabulary.
That's in the journalism or journalistic world, as you would call it.
Yeah, what did you see from the Texans on Monday night?
Well, I think they responded to the challenge. Mm-hmm. You know, after a few consecutive weeks of people questioning all right, whether or not they can put it all together in all 3 phases, we saw one of the best versions of the Texans. We saw a dominant defensive front. Mm-hmm. All right, we saw a run game that was really hard for the Cowboys to stop all night.
Right.
And then we saw CJ connect with Nico and Tank Dell and his receivers, and the passing game complemented the run game.
Right.
But the defense really set the tone, really starting with Derek Stingley in that secondary.
Pep, I think you're trying to take my job, because that's exactly who we're talking about next. Derek Stingley Jr., who had a really phenomenal showing against the Dallas Cowboys, locking down CeeDee Lamb. We have some of the graphics and showing you what he did on that day, including an interception to really open up the ball game for the Texans. How impressive was he in that matchup?
I think it just shows that he's a top-tier corner. When I was talking to him, one of the stories that I did about Derek Stingley taking that next step, he mentioned that you have to consistently win against the top guys to be considered a top cornerback. And again, he's done that against CeeDee Lamb. He's done that against Amari Cooper in the playoff game, DJ Moore. The list kind of goes on and on in terms of guys that he's been able to, I mean, the Jets games to me still sticks in my mind because no safety help going against Devontae Adams, former All-Pro. Garrett Wilson, he's been 1,000 yards every single year in his career. Mike Williams, we know what he does. And he was able to hold all 3 of those guys to 3 catches for 22 yards. No big plays, no explosives. So Derek Stingley is playing at an all-pro level, and he's making people that thought Sauce was better than him look kind of silly.
Wow. Derek Stingley was the 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft a couple years back. But even so, just from an offensive standpoint, when you have a corner like Derek Stingley, who has excellent ball skills, even though he dropped the pick, right?
Yeah.
But he can get his hands on the ball. You're a bit hesitant to call plays in which you try and target the side that Derek Stingley's on.
Because when you do, you see the numbers: 6 targets, only 2 catches, 19 yards, 3 PBUs, and DJ, what's that say on the bottom there?
You know how crazy it is for a passer rating to be 3.5? 3.5, you know you get a passer rating of 39 if you just spike the ball every single play. Down to Hut, spike. You just spike for the whole entire game, you get a passer rating of 39. 3.5?
Candidate for defensive MVP? National Football League?
He needs a little more interceptions. He needs a little more interceptions.
We could be talking about an all-pro player.
Absolutely. I would be hard-pressed to find people that have been playing better than Derek. I got one more stat for you guys. You know I'm the stat guy.
Yeah.
He's been, out of every cornerback that's been targeted at least 50 times, he's getting up the lowest completion percentage and the lowest yards per attempt at 5.5.
And you have the president of the Derek Stingley fan club.
DJ Bianime.
DJ.
He's not the only guy who's been playing at an all-pro level. Also, Joe Mixon, we talked about it earlier as well. 3 touchdowns on the day, 109 yards. Seems like week after week we continue to talk about how good Joe Mixon has been in a Houston Texans uniform.
I mean, Joe Mixon, not only is he good on the field, but he's been extremely good in the locker room. You know, he's become a catalyst for just tenacity and focus and just go out and compete from week to week. He was the guy that probably challenged his teammates when they had that consecutive, streak of not playing their best football.
Right.
But Joe Mixon is dearly missed in Cincinnati for sure.
Absolutely. Again, Joe Mixon set a franchise record, tied it with Aaron Foster's for most 100-yard rushing performances in a season.
Crazy.
And we still have a few games left to go.
Quite a few.
He's going to break that record easily.
Easy.
Gonna break that.
I love it. You guys just throw it out there easily.
Easily gonna break that.
You know,
Yeah.
they're going to win the next 2 games easily.
They won't win it easily, but they should win it because they look like easy matchups on the schedule. You see, I did that. But anywho, imagine if Joe Mixon didn't miss those 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
What would his numbers look like? He would be looking like he could be in a conversation for MVP, honestly, because Saquon Barkley's in it.
Yeah.
People talked a little bit about Derrick Henry. So I really believe Joe Mixon has been easily the best acquisition that Nick Caserio made in the offseason. And they only got him for a 7th-round pick.
Pep, those are the facts, but what about the film? I know you have some film you're going to break down for us. I'll let you
take you guys over
take you to the walk.
Coach Pep's grass room. Come on.
As you get you set for the film session. Now, early on, he had the really big run play to set the Texans up. And it started with that first touchdown. Pep, what did you see here?
So what we have here, stop it there for just a sec, okay? Good. This is perfect, okay? The Texans, they major in stretch zone, outside zone. Is a run play in which defensively they see the initial path of the back, and he's headed towards the outside hip of a ghost tight end, where a tight end would align, okay? And once he gets started on his track, he's going 5 steps. And then now he's going to read the first covered offensive lineman. And you let it roll. And what you see is he did a really good job, all right, of setting up his blocks. If you go back one more time, Chance, okay, of setting up his blocks and allowing his offensive lineman to get a hat on that defensive tackle and just push him by. But what you see from Joe Mixon is just outstanding vision and patience. Let it roll. You see him here just cut back. And now he gets into the secondary, and he does what a good runner should do. Yeah. Created his own yards and finished this play by headbutting the goalpost and scoring a touchdown for your Texans. All right. So well done, well blocked. All right. Really good execution by the offensive line. All right. Really good patience and vision by Joe Mixon. But if you can, it's hard to, we call explosives in the run game runs that are over 5 to 7 yards. This is a 45-yard touchdown. That's a testament to how the offensive line played in this game.
Now, that's the 45-yard touchdown, but maybe the Houston Texans should have had a 70-yarder, but it was called back. Pep, do you agree or disagree on this one?
Well, first play of the game, you got Nico motioning across, getting himself in position. If you look closely at Laramie, go back one more time, Chance, please. So just so that we can explain to the audience kind of how this rule works. The rule is different in college than it is in the National Football League. We're talking about, all right, the rule in which they determine if a lineman is too far downfield, all right, before the receiver catches the ball and starts downfield. All right. In college football, you get a 2 to 3 yard grace area from the line of scrimmage in which the offensive lineman can work to sell the run and or get downfield. But in this case, in the National Football League, there's little to no grace. You got to make it happen within a yard of the line of scrimmage. So Laramie's been coached to go and really pick the yard marker. All right. You got to think that they probably rehearsed this play minimum 5 to 6 times over the course of the week, because this was the first play of the game. So at this point, it's up to Laramie to just continue down the line of scrimmage and not get downfield before Nico gets the ball in his hand. But it was close. It was close. All right, that was a big game. That was exciting to see Nico, all right, run what, 21 miles per hour, DJ?
21 miles per hour.
21 miles per hour. But we got to do a better job of just paying attention to the detail. And over the course of the game, I'm sure Laramie was able to atone for that mistake he made early in the game.
Now, we will be right back after the break to talk about the Texans versus Titans matchup coming up next.
Tennessee, their defense, it stands out starting up front with Simmons and Sweat, like 2 big players that are hard to move. They make it difficult, very difficult to run the ball against them because they do such a great job of controlling the line of scrimmage, and they're 2 guys who are really hard to displace just because of their size and their power. So that is the focal point for us, is how do we handle their defensive line, because that is their strength right now.
Very talented. They have a really good defense. They've put it on film. They're almost top 10 in every category that we go over, on days like today. So yeah, they're number one in third down, and they have a lot of playmakers.
The Tennessee Titans certainly do have a lot of playmakers, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. The Texans have a lot of respect for the 2-win Titans, and that starts up front with their 2 big defensive linemen, DJ.
Yeah, that allows them to be one of the best third down defenses in the entire NFL. So when you have those 2 guys, and we know the Texans' interior offensive line has had issues throughout the entire year. They've been having musical chairs there. So if they can't get a handle on those 2 guys, in Sweat and Simmons, then it could be a very, very long afternoon at NRG.
For once, I agree with DJ. I do feel like the interior matchups will be a tremendous challenge for the Texans. Just think back a couple weeks ago against the New York Jets. Yep. They took their game record and lined them up over the left guard of the Houston Texans. And I would expect that we'll see a similar scheme, maybe some type of underfront. If the Texans line up with the tight end to the right, in which they're going to have Jeffrey Simmons line up over the left guard. And if they put him on the outside shoulder of the left guard, it becomes a tremendous challenge for the center to help the left guard. So that'll be the plan within the plan on how to contain Jeffrey Simmons and really support that matchup between him and the left guard.
What do you remember about your days when you were OCing, game planning for a guy like Simmons? How much of a problem can he be?
It's actually tougher to game plan for an interior matchup that is not in your favor, all right? And what we've seen in the National Football League in recent years specifically is just teams are now building their defensive front from the inside out. It's not just about having an elite pass rusher and trying to feature that matchup. Now it becomes more of a challenge when you take a defensive tackle and line them up on the outside shoulder of the guard with a defensive end and a 5 technique adjacent to him, so that now it's tougher to get the support from the center, all right, to help either guard spot.
That's the Tennessee Titans on defense, but offensively, talking about the Titans, do they have enough firepower to keep up with the Texans come Sunday?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Will Levis, 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. The Texans have had their way anytime they played Will Levis. I mean, last year they knocked him out of a game. That just speaks to the physicality that the Texans have when it comes to facing the Tennessee Titans and Will Levis. So it's really going to come down to, can the Texans offense be able to move the ball against the Titans' stout pass defense that only allows 164 passing yards per game?
To have the Tennessee Titans move the ball, they have to get the ball in the hands of a guy like Calvin Ridley. What do you like from him as a wide receiver? I
like the fact that Calvin Ridley can move around and play multiple spots. I would expect that we'll see Stingley travel with Ridley and really try and take advantage of his ability to match up with the best receiver from week to week.
As I mentioned, the Texans versus the 2-win Titans on Sunday, but that's just the start of back-to-back games in the division. You look at this week, it's against the Titans, and the week 13 is against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who also have 2 wins, and then you see the rest of their schedule. But before the bye, a fairly easy schedule relatively to their records.
Easy does not exist in the National Football League.
Why is that? Explain.
If anybody stayed up and watched that game, you'll see that it's truly a game of matchups.
Right.
And you're one play away from really just having maybe one of your feature players not be available. So I think it's a game in which you can't take for granted, that the Tennessee Titans, that their record is not what they would want it to be, I would assume, at this point in the season. And the Texans are going to have to come out and play really good football.
And again, the Texans haven't blown out their divisional foes. The week 1, they won by 2 points. When they beat the Jaguars, they won by 4. When they beat the Colts, they won by 3. So again, to assume that they're going to just blow this team out, even though they have a bad record, I think the matchup is in the Titans' favor to keep it close. I still think the Texans should and will win. Because it still is an easy-ish matchup.
Easy-ish.
Easy-ish matchup. But again, I think that they should win. But the Texans have shown in the division even dating back to last year out there, that one win against the Jags and one against the Titans, they played their divisional games pretty close.
I want to pull up that schedule one more time because, as I mentioned, they have the Titans and the Jags back-to-back. And then you see some of their other games where it's coming out the bye, it's at home versus the Dolphins, and then it's that three games in 10-day stretch, Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens, before they close things out against the Titans again. So, of course, it'd be very beneficial for this Houston Texans team if they can go into the bye in Week 14, 9-4 on the season. But first things first, you got to take care of business on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans, which, once again, divisional games, never, ever easy, but we will see what happens come Sunday. We will be right back after the break with more Texans Pep Talk. Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and as you get your recipes ready for that Thanksgiving dinner, we have the recipe for success. Pep, break us down the ingredients to winning football.
Let me get in the kitchen right here. Let me cook a little bit, young blood, right?
In the kitchen.
Let me put a little sauce on this. Okay, so, all right, what matters most, all right, is really winning the game and determining from week to week what it's going to take to beat an opponent. I've said to you guys on numerous occasions that the National Football League is all about matchups, okay? All right, but the teams that win, all right, they've embraced, all right, just doing these things that are required to make sure that you have an opportunity to win the game at winning time. Mm-hmm. That's in the fourth quarter, all right? As we all know, okay, in the National Football League, all right, you want to make sure that you don't do the things that can compound and cause you the game, all right, as opposed to just go out and try and throw deep passes all game to outscore the opponent, okay? Right. All right, these factors are the major factors into determining whether or not a team is going to win a game. First and foremost, controlling the football.
That gravy train.
All right, the gravy train, no doubt about it, all right? We all like a little gravy on our mashed potatoes and
turkey
stuffing, okay? All right, stuffing. In y'all neighborhood, in my neighborhood, it's dressing.
Come on now.
Okay, let's keep it real, all right? Okay. But we like the Russian attempts. Mm-hmm. And what this really means is the teams that win, they're typically in a 4-minute situation at the end of the game.
Right.
All right. They have the opportunity to run the football to finish games. And so Russian attempts always show up. All right. The next thing is protecting the football. All right, that's really the most important factor. That turnover ratio. That turnover ratio is really important, okay? You got to protect the football, and you have to take the ball away. And then last but not least, scoring defense. All right, dine on your defense. I love that. Mm-hmm. Opponents' points per game. And if you look at how the Texans are built, Joe Mixon, okay? All right, C.J. Stroud is not a guy that turns the ball over very often, right? And then last but not least, that defensive front, that secondary, the way that they play on defense, okay, gives them an opportunity to go out and beat anybody that they face on a week-to-week basis.
Pep, I know we're talking about football, but all that just making me hungry for Thanksgiving. Thanks for watching Texans Pep Talk. We will see you guys next week. Texans-Titans on Sunday.